Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
Welcome to this month's meeting of the Pairpoint Park Stakeholders Advisory Committee. I'm Steve Jones.
Dawn Jelly.
Amanda Kelly.
Bill Campbell.
Ann Hohenberger.
Maisie Sanderson.
Mary Teagle.
That's the members present. We have a quorum. And for the balance of this meeting, I'm elevating Maisie, who is normally a non-voting member, but because we're down a member this meeting, I'm elevating you to a voting member of this committee for the next remainder of the balance of this meeting.
Am I a voting?
Yes, you are. You are.
Okay.
You've been
Okay.
elevated permanently.
Elevated.
Permanently.
I feel
Permanently
taller.
elevated.
Yeah.
I did actually, yes.
Okay. Is there any public comment? Hearing none. Draft minutes.
I move that they be accepted as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay. Before we do that, who's taking minutes?
Dawn.
Dawn.
I'm taking minutes.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you, Amanda, for setting that up.
And you're up next.
I'm
yes,
up next.
So we have a motion on the table. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say no. So moved. Amanda, do you mind, as we contemplate the construction, the design and construction of the park, there are various steps that committees go through and the town needs to go through. Do you mind summarizing that for the group? You did a wonderful job
The
the other day.
CIP specifically.
Yeah.
Okay.
You did so beautifully. We met with Jen Martell, and Amanda just gave this terrific capsule summary.
I don't remember where I started from, but we'll come up with a start. So we have an SB2 form of government, we have a select board, and every year the town votes on our budget. So the budget includes warrant articles. So there's the main town budget, operating budget, and then there's all these warrant articles for specific items that the town wants to do. And those are broken out separately. So it could be a fire truck, could be a street sweeper, it could be a project that the town wants to do. And so if this committee wants this project to be something that we want taxpayer money for, it'll have to go through that process. Now, to get there, there's another process to get there. So we have, as a town, a 5-year rolling capital improvements program, and that is something that each department basically itemizes large projects that they see coming down the pike over the next 5 years. So this park would need to be owned by a department. Now, with Dave not being here, I'm not sure if we know in the short term what department would own it. Would it still be the planning department? Would it be the parks department? So that's TBD right now. But whichever department head owns the department can then request, or maybe the select board can also do it themselves, I'm not sure, we can ask Nico in a second, that a CIP, capital improvements plan item, be created. And so that has a dollar amount, it has an expected year, and it has a description of the project. So if we, for instance, wanted to fund the design and engineering of our concept, right? We only made a concept, and we did a great job coming up with that concept, but now it needs to be truly designed. It needs construction documents of what do you do for fill? What do you do? Where do the pieces go? How are they made? So that it can be handed off to a contractor to actually construct it. So that's something beyond a concept. We are not going to be capable of doing that here. So if we want to hire somebody for that and we want to do some taxpayer funds for that, a department would need to create a CIP item, and it would go through the, if Dave creates it, it might go through the planning board. I'm not 100% sure on that, for their approval. Do you know, Jen? Do you think this
The planning
would?
board sort of reviews all of the CIP items,
Okay.
including anything by
Great.
the planning department,
Yeah.
but we don't approve anything.
Okay.
It's just a
But there is a
recommendation.
planning board review first.
is, yeah.
And then the budget recommendations committee would then really do an in-depth on that CIP item if it was for the coming year, and say whether or not they wanted it to move forward for that year, so 2026 being the current year. So the other piece of that, right, there's a dollar amount. I think that for our committee, there should, if it's something we want to do, there also should be some sort of a match. We should definitely commit to raising funds for this, because we said, you know, it's part of our charge to find grants and donations, and we said we want to do that long-term as best we can. And I think that that would be really needed up front to say, hey, we want this CIP item of X dollars, but we're, you know, committing to raising Y dollars. So,
I have a question about that.
yeah.
So a lot of times on the CIP, you see, you know, $5 million for blah, blah, blah infrastructure
Right.
project, zero tax impact. So like that is funded elsewhere, but it's still a CIP item. Do you understand that?
Yeah,
Can you
so I
explain
understand
that?
it a teeny bit. It could be that there's a grant that is known that would be covering it. It could be that it's coming out of fund balance. So that's another way that things get funded. There could be a lot of different ways that that happens.
So I guess the reason I ask is just like if we have an amount that we want to ask for, or that we think it's going to cost, do we ask for the full amount, or do we ask for the amount that minus the amount that we think we can raise?
I think the item would probably cover the full amount, and then we would say the amount that we're trying to cover. And then when it goes to the warrant, so the CIP item is, you know, for the interim while everyone's discussing it, and then it gets on the town warrant in March with the actual, this is what we're asking
dollar
for
amount. Okay.
from taxpayer
Okay.
funds. And so there's a little bit more time maybe to suss that out.
Yeah,
And might ask you to introduce yourself. You weren't here at the beginning.
sorry.
That's
Jen
all right.
Martell.
Yeah, and
Devin Scarrett.
so people who are watching can know who
Yeah.
you are.
So should we look for
Yes,
clarification on
look
anything
for
that I messed up?
clarification. Yes,
Happy to be wrong.
Nico, if we can ask your sage advice.
No, I think that was well said. I'll fill in a few holes, if I may. So each year, department heads will present capital improvement project proposals for the budget, usually around this time, or you know, no later than July. Department heads will look at the needs within their departments. If they also support a committee, for instance, Planning and Parks and Rec support this committee. If the committee wants to propose a CIP, then it's done on their behalf by the department head. So the department head would create the CIP request. In this particular case, for this year, where the town planner would ordinarily do it, I would say the town manager and the assistant town manager would be to whom you reach out. Amanda's correct. Once the CIP is put together, it goes to the planning board in August, and the planning board has 2 public hearings in which the department heads and/or the town manager present each capital improvement project to the planning board and to the public. Gives the planning board an opportunity to ask questions, folks, and the public to ask questions. And then ordinarily, the planning board chair, on behalf of the planning board, writes a letter to the select board indicating that they've seen the CIP projects and they either support or not support it. Generally, they support them. Amanda went through the budget recommendations committee process. Then it comes to the select board. There's a budget hearing in January, and then ultimately it goes to the legislative body in March for them to vote. Deliberative session and then to vote. There are times where there's no tax implication. Jen, you asked that question. Sometimes it's a water and sewer. It comes out of the water and sewer fund. Sometimes it comes out of fund balance. Sometimes it's entirely paid for by grants. Generally, that's when you see zero tax implication. There are warrant articles that some of it will be paid by grants. Sometimes a majority of it will be paid by grants, and some of it coming out of taxpayer dollars. But no matter what the percentage breakdown is, the warrant article has to read the entire cost of the project. So for instance, if the project's going to cost $100,000, even if $70,000 is going to be paid by grants, the $100,000 has to go on. And then within the warrant article, it's broken down. I would have to get back to you to see how and if a warrant article can be written that would be indicative of the fact that you plan to match it with donations, because that's different than a grant. A grant is something that you apply for, either you get it or you don't. With donations, you're kind of hoping that you get it,
Or they're rolling
or they're
in.
rolling in. So let's not address that tonight, but I could certainly get an answer before Monday night when you come before the select board. So other than that, Amanda, thank you.
One question.
Sure.
When is the warrant article language finalized?
So the warrant article language is finalized after the budget hearing. So the draft of the warrant comes before the select board and the public the third Tuesday in January. Each warrant article is read by the select board. It's presented by department heads, committees, town manager. The select board at that time can revise or amend the language or suggest that the town manager amend or revise. And then the board simply votes to either recommend the warrant article to the legislative body or not. So it's in that time in January.
And then in deliberative session, it can also
Of
again
course,
be
by the
revised
legislative
and
body. Mhm.
amended. Yes, okay.
Does anyone have any questions about, that's, well, it's a terrific capsule summary. Thank you for filling in the holes. Does anyone have any questions about the task in front of us? Barry?
With respect to these various hearings, including the budget committee's meetings, will any of us be called upon to respond to questions or explain things?
Not traditionally, no. The department head takes care of that. So
Okay.
the department head goes to the night, the CIP night, and they present it to the budget committee.
Okay.
I believe that committee chairs may accompany the department head,
Yeah,
but frequently are not
not
the
you,
person to speak.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And in this case,
Cool.
absent the town planner, it would be the town manager who would be presenting.
Town manager, assistant town manager, finance director, but you're right, there have been instances, it's not often, but there have been instances where the committee chair has accompanied the department head to either help speak to or be there to answer questions. And I'm going back a couple of years, but I know one time the Sustainability Advisory Committee had their chair there, Rec Advisory Committee, more to support the department head, but that would be
Yeah.
appropriate,
I
right?
do have another question. Manager was the magic word.
Can you speak
How-
into the mic, please?
How does anyone think we'll manage it, we, our committee, through the transition from the current manager to the next one? I think Dean, I think he resigns in June? Do you
No,
know?
he decides at the end of the year.
December,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Yep,
so,
he's under contract through the end of December.
okay,
Yeah.
so there'll be no bump
No,
in the middle.
no bump there.
Thank you.
No bump there.
Can I ask a quick question?
Please. Yeah.
And apologies if you covered this as I was before I walked in. Did I hear you say, Amanda, that there's still some openness to the question of which department would?
I wasn't sure, and Nico clarified that in this time while Dave's out, the town manager / assistant town manager will own our CIP item.
Okay, all right. And so that means it doesn't mean, like, in my mind, this is a park, right?
Mhm.
So is it?
So traditionally, the town planner has owned it when it was in the development phase, and then it transfers later. Yes.
So town planners plan town projects, and then Parks and
Yeah.
Rec takes over when it's a park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome, thanks.
Okay. All right. So keep that in the back of your minds. Are there any further questions? Keep that in the back of your minds. Good questions. Let's turn to the questions that I will ask along with Jen and with Amanda in no particular order at next week's select board meeting. And I don't know, you have a copy. You have a copy. You can look on it. Okay. Let's just run through them quickly. The first one is, does the select board approve the Shady Grove design direction as a vision for Pairpoint Park, along with the themes of local flora and fauna, history of the river, and environmental protection? So that's taking our motion from last month that we,
Will the select board have a copy of all three of the proposals?
yes, absolutely.
They'll get a whole
Yeah,
presentation.
they're gonna
This
get-
is slide 20 of a 21 slide.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, Bill, I looked at the packet a couple hours ago, and it's all there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We gave it to them at
It'll be available online
So,
tomorrow
let me-
afternoon by 5.
Let me backtrack. Before you ask your question, let me say, the three of us have prepared an extensive packet, which is mostly so to give background, and we go through what the committee's charge is and how we've met those charges, and what our recommendations are as an advisory committee. And these are our questions for the select board.
that we're leading up to.
Exactly. So second, grants. Does the select board authorize the Pairpoint Park Stakeholders Advisory Committee to work with town officials to pursue grants to design and construct? Those are the key words. To design and construct the park according to the approved vision. So, why did I mention design and construct? Because that's what the donations, the grants would go toward, and asks for authorization. Donations,
Can we back up?
yes?
On the grants, no one's mentioned this, but I think we all assume that it's going to be a two-phase project. The first one will be design, and the second phase will be construction. Is it all going into one?
So grant money and donation money would go into one big pot, and we would pull from that pot.
Okay,
Yeah,
so,
yes.
in other words, then, the money we will be asking for, tax dollars, donations, will cover, if it passes, the design and the construction.
Actually, no.
Okay, so
Yes,
that's why
yes,
I
yeah.
asked my question. So
the
I
grant is,
think there should be some,
Well,
if they're
there will be,
separate.
there is.
That's why they're separate.
That's
Hold on.
separate, yeah. There is
Okay,
later.
Thank you.
Very good point. So let's
So
just. take-
grant says design and construct under
Yeah.
the grants.
Yeah.
Grants will cover design and construct. See
Okay.
how grants says
Okay.
design and construct?
Yeah.
Yep,
And donations similarly
says,
says design and construct.
so let him go through donations. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Read it.
So does the select board authorize the Pairpoint Park Stakeholders Advisory Committee to work with town officials to solicit donations to design and construct the park according to the approved vision? So we're not held up. We have a unified account for a unified task. And that's our task, which is design and construct. Those are the grants and donations requests that we will make. And then comes your thought.
Right,
Yes,
it'd be
yeah.
a second go to the select board.
Well, there'll be multiple.
Multiple goes.
There'll be multiple
Okay.
goes.
Okay, thank you.
There is the last item, there is a need for construction documents to be eligible for many grants, to get accurate budget numbers and to prepare a project timeline. Therefore, does the select board authorize the creation of a CIP, that's capital improvement project, budget item to cover outstanding costs of the park design and engineering, with the understanding that we will defray this cost with monetary donations received between now and the onset of work.
So that's just for the design and only to be used for the design.
And outstanding means we already owe. I just question, that word is confusing to me.
Outstanding costs. I think it's supposed to mean.
Anticipated
yeah.
costs? or-
Sure, that's fine.
Yeah, yeah,
It's supposed to be like the money that we can't raise
Right.
for design.
yeah.
We're
Right.
going to try to raise a little bit, but we're not going to get
Yes,
that far.
yes. So the balance is another way of putting it, the balance of the costs that are not raised through donations would be, we would ask that of the town. That is the thought. How
We don't
would
have
sit-
any
yeah.
donations now, but we really darn hope that before, January, we have, that's our goal. That's what we need to work on. That is our number
Yeah.
one priority now, is to
Exactly.
work on that.
In fact, I would submit that that is our job, all of our job,
Yes.
communally, collectively.
Yeah, it's not a
Together.
subcommittee thing, it's the whole committee. That's it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With respect to this last bit,
Mhm.
again, back to my question, is it a two-phase thing? I expect the select board will say, when are you gonna come to us with construction request?
so-
When will that be on the budget? The next year, or?
Well, that's part of the CIP budget process. That is. So, it is. So, the first step we're going to go through is, do we even make it onto this year's CIP budget?
Right,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
following
yeah,
all
yeah,
that. What
yeah.
eludes me, and I think it might elude other folks too, is when does the actual construction
And that too is a
request
part of, that,
come up? Does that come up
that
in
comes
a
up separate.
subsequent year, or?
So-
Yes, a subsequent year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think I would suggest that you make some mention of that to the select board.
Do
We
you
have-
need mention of that?
We actually have that in the presentation.
Yeah,
Is
Yeah.
it?
yeah.
If this happened in 2026, we would maybe hope for 2027. If it doesn't happen in 2026, now it's bumped out.
It's like.
It's
yeah,
in the presentation.
Back to the
Yeah.
drawing board.
Correct.
When I hear your question, Mary, what it makes me think about is the challenge for folks in the community who are not steeped in the machinations of how these committees work. I think about some members of our committee who are like, what are we going to do with the park in the meantime? And I'm just thinking about vast members of the community who are wondering, when's a park going to go there? So I'm less worried, Mary, about what needs to go. I trust that the members of the committee who've been working on this know what will be expected in order to get to the point of the CIP requests.
Yeah, that's.
It's more, how I'm interpreting your question is more about like, when we're going to go fundraise to people, what's the talking points?
Yeah, no, that's
So
not
at some
my
point in
question.
time, maybe
Yeah.
probably not today, but I'll look forward to translating how we get through this step that's actually
I think
folks
let's
on the
find
board
out
to
if
what's
they
next.
even approve us having a CIP item for 2026, and then we'll talk about this again. But there's too much unknown to even give any sort of answer that means anything. That's not fluff out of the side of my mouth.
And
But
yes,
Monday, we'll know a little more.
I'm anticipating the select board's gonna say, well, okay, we're gonna talk about the construction documents,
Mhm.
the donations, or
Mhm.
Yep.
a tax levy or whatever it's called. And then next year, we're gonna talk about the cost of construction,
Right, right.
because we'll have takeoffs
Yeah.
by the time the
Yeah,
conducts are
yeah.
prepared.
So, an effort to, there are many projects that have a design and an engineering phase.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's not
that's- yeah,
news to me.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just wondering, when are we gonna build it? And that's kind of what you
Yeah.
interpreted.
Yeah.
When are we gonna ask for money for construction? I
So
think
this
that
is
was-
our
A ye-
proposal.
When are we gonna
Another
get the
year after they-
construction costs?
Yeah,
Or
after they-
ballpark, with Dave out, do we have anybody that can take over that responsibility?
Let me turn to my left
Okay.
and ask over here. So we're going to be relying on the town manager And will the town manager be relying on any particular staff for cost estimates of particular design?
Just ballpark figures even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we'll get there. You know, we're still, everyone's rolling up their sleeves and getting the work done, but I think your next step and, you know, obviously I've seen the packet, so I think making that presentation and then we'll sort that other stuff out.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
lot
a
of
good
up-
question. But as Amanda said, our first step is to get authorization. And if the select board authorizes design and construction, then we can get cost estimates.
Yeah, I think they would want to have.
Well, I think if memory serves me correctly too, if I may, Mr. Chair, at your last meeting, when Dave offered to put something together,
Yes.
it was on the back of a napkin, like it wasn't going to be this is what it's going to, and I think that there would be, without knowing exactly what it is you're doing, I think it would be disingenuous to say that it's going to cost X. I think we all have to go with the assumption of this is a ballpark figure that,
Right.
you know, and I think that's what Dave was going to do.
I think the select board is okay with knowing that Dave's out right now,
Yeah.
and that's the person who's in charge of it. And
But
so
it
for
was,
Monday night, we can't we can't make something happen before.
Like, that wasn't going to happen anyway. It was going to be a rough,
It was gonna
on
be
the back
so
of a
rough,
napkin.
It wasn't gonna
Exactly.
change too
Right.
much anyway, so it's okay.
Difference between 5,000 and 50,000 might be.
Oh, you mean for the design and engineering?
Yeah.
We have that in the packet. That's all set.
That's
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, but not a cost estimate for
So
the
let's
park.
unmask that figure.
Yeah, let's.
Yeah, that's right.
Well,
So our estimate, and Jen, you were the
Yeah.
one who came up with the number.
Sure,
yeah.
yeah, do you want to speak to it?
Please.
Or I mean, it wasn't super, coming up with the number was not a very scientific process, but, you know, I am in the industry and do design and construction, so I kind of have a general idea of what things cost. There's lots of, when we're writing a proposal for a project to do design and engineering, we have a few different methods. One is trying to figure out what the overall construction cost is, and then usually design and engineering is between 12 and 15%. So if you have $1 million project, it's gonna be a $120,000 to $150,000 design and engineering fee. So that's kind of an easy way to do it, but we don't know the construction cost, so it's hard to do. We can go by square foot. So like square foot of park is typically in the $30 to $50 range for construction, and then go by that. So anyway, I sort of like took the average of all the different methods that we often use. And then sometimes we just look at like, okay, it's gonna take us, we're gonna have 3 months to design and construct this. You know, we're gonna have 2 staff members working 20 hours a week for 3 months. This is how much it's gonna cost. So that's the other way. So I kind of took like the average of all that and assumed, which I came up with about $35,000. I also think we're gonna need some additional survey information because the survey that we have, number one, the town doesn't own it. It was, didn't, well, I guess they got it. Well, it needs to be updated, and we need more, we're gonna need more spot elevations, especially with the degree of grading. We're gonna need more information about exactly where things are. So I'm thinking that we probably need another $5,000 for additional survey, assuming that we go back to the same survey company who already has all the data that's in there currently. So, so for that, I think that we would probably be safer asking for $40,000 for design and construction. I mean, design and engineering.
Yep.
Design and engineering.
Yep.
So let's take a moment and just absorb that number. Does anyone have any questions about $40,000 total? We have a further proposal, which I'll throw in there, which is that we would work as a committee to get donations to cover 5 out of those $40,000.
At least.
Yeah. And thoughts about that?
What's our deadline?
Uh,
January 1st.
Yeah, so remembering
Well,
the,
yes,
the,
The
timeline we just talked about.
Timeline we talked about. So, yeah, exactly. Which deadline?
Yeah.
There's several deadlines.
yeah, I mean,
We
it's
have com-
probably
we
by
have
the,
a committed,
the deliberative session
Yeah.
at the latest, but really it should be by the budget hearing by the third Tuesday in January.
so
Yeah.
the committed
Yes.
dollars or the actual held dollars
Yes.
that have been
Yes.
donated?
Yes.
That's my question.
Okay,
Our deadline.
6 months,
Okay.
The third Tuesday in January.
yeah. Which actually, that's actually, yeah, that's actually 7
Yeah.
months. Yeah. Gives us time.
Not
Or whenever
being-
packets are due before
I
that.
don't have a ton of fundraising experience, like, I'm curious.
That seems
Is
super easy to me.
5,000
That
Oh,
seems like
okay.
nothing.
Should
That
we do
seems
10?
ridiculously low.
Should we try to do?
I don't know what we should say for Tuesday
Yeah.
night, but I feel like we can knock that out of the park.
Oh,
So to speak.
How about if we feed you
That-
dinner
yeah,
for the next 6
seriously.
months and you do
Well,
it all?
I am,
If you cook for me for 6 months, I will. Yes.
okay, well, I-
Sold.
I am positive that the taxpayers will very much appreciate anything we take off of $40,000. So let's say, for example, we had a great string of months and raised 30. Just imagine this. They would be delighted to put, I'm sure that the select board would be delighted to
Put him on the spot.
Yes, exactly.
Leave him
Put together a warrant article item that said.
I think
just
we'd be
10
as
just
delighted as
10K,
Amanda would for
just
6 months of
10K.
food.
And no, you don't have to respond. So more is better.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think it will show good faith, and a lot of goodwill will be created the more that we are able to fundraise.
Yeah.
I have a request for a future agenda item that pertains to this. I have done some fundraising, and people often have what we call a collateral piece. It could be a pamphlet, it could be a public statement, and I think we need to
Oh, that's
brainstorm a collateral piece.
100%. We need a lot of
And I
time
think
spent on
we should
this.
probably put that on the next agenda.
That's the next few.
And have
yeah,
people come with ideas,
Yeah.
pictures.
critical.
Yes, yeah.
Agreed.
can I just clarify? So you're talking about it's going to be 40K, and then we're going to say we'll get 5K out of that. When do we say that we're going to do whatever number that is?
Monday night.
Monday night.
Yep.
So is it better for us to say 5K and then go over? Or is it better, I know we're going to knock it out the park. Is it better to say, or is it better to say 10K and not get 10K? I think
Can we say at least?
underestimate, over-deliver.
Yeah, a
Say at
minimum of
least.
5K?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
So let's repeat what your request was. Start with you.
My request is that we say 5K and then we over-deliver, and then they're very impressed with us.
Very good, okay.
Yeah, and that's how we've done it so far.
Yes,
Throw a party
Great.
with what's left over.
exactly.
In the park.
But
Yeah.
under promise and over deliver.
Yeah, I think that's.
Okay. Any other comments?
I'm fine with that, but I just don't want to set the bar low, so internally, let's have
A higher bar?
goal.
A higher
Oh,
goal?
yeah, I have a way
Okay.
higher.
We will.
So-
You
Okay.
seem like you do. so-
Yes, okay.
Should we have a competition?
We could say
Yes.
at least
Okay.
5,000.
Okay.
And can I clarify one more thing? So you said 4K for design and engineering. Then we'll have another dollar amount for construction?
Yes, the design and engineering will
We'll create.
recreate that,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
And that will be a subsequent discussion with the select board and with the
This
budget.
time next
Yes,
year.
yeah,
Okay.
budget recommendation committee and
Thank you.
the same process. Okay. That brings us through what we will ask on Monday night of the select board. I put down Jen, this was a mistake. I misunderstood a communication between Jen and Amanda. My apologies, Jen.
That's okay, I didn't see the agenda, it's like yesterday. and I
Yeah,
was
like,
"Oh,
woo! So,
it's not happening."
we do not have cost estimates, back of the envelope cost estimates, because Dave Sharples is on excuse me. Whoa, let's start again. Let's start again.
Cut that.
I'm so sorry, David. Medical leave, and all the best to Dave.
Yes.
The cost estimates were going to be rough. He was going to contact, and he actually did contact, he and I had a conversation this week. He did contact members of the construction industry and ask for ballpark figures, but he's not in a position to put those numbers together. I don't know for which design or designs he got numbers. So I would consider the whole thing to be a blank at this point. And I'm not sure that us not having cost estimates makes much of a difference for the select board. And I know, Nico, you can't speak for the select board, but do you have any concerns?
No.
Okay. All right.
So, to recap that, Amanda said you're going to be explaining how Jen came up with her numbers and other details at this meeting on the 30th. So the number we do have is Jen's
Yeah, that is not.
expert estimate.
Yes. that-
The design
and
estimate.
construction.
I understand.
Yeah,
Have no-
yeah,
yeah.
not for to build a park.
Right,
Yeah,
although
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
part of,
It's
part
part
of
of it,
the
it's part of
formula.
it, yeah. Yeah. It's very
Thank you for
rough
doing
part.
that.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions there before I move on to the next item on the agenda? So Keith, 2 months ago, at our monthly meeting, put forward a thought that had two parts. And I would like to submit that we might discuss the first part now, and the second part later, given that Keith isn't here to defend his point of view, his perspective. And the first part is to fill in the hole. And if I understand correctly, and I hope that I am channeling Keith, and say he would donate his time and his labor to fill the hole. And potentially we would use materials that are available to the town to fill the hole. Filling the hole is only half of what Keith suggested, and as I said, I would like to postpone the discussion of the second part of what he suggested, which is, and move the fence down to the river. That's a more controversial discussion, and as I say, he's not here to defend his interests or his point of view, so I'd like to put that one off if we could. Does anyone have any problem with that strategy? Okay.
Steve,
My only concern would be if we fill the hole.
Can you speak into the microphone?
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. That if we fill the hole, and then we wait, that people might get the impression that we're really dragging our feet, because it'll be another year before we probably get to do some other things down there.
And I disagree. I think they'll think, hey, something's happening.
You know, for what?
For a
weeks.
while.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not dead against
Okay,
it.
okay.
Were you going to say something, Amanda?
Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm fine with the notion that we would separate those two discussion topics
Yeah.
and then really just focus on filling the hole. So if you're moving, we discuss filling the hole, then I'm ready for that.
Okay.
My question
Okay,
on that,
that's
so I thought we were just going to go with fill the whole conversation. But if we vote not to fill the hole, we can't move the fence.
We can't what?
Move the fence. So therefore, it becomes,
Right.
It becomes a moot issue.
yeah.
Um,
So I think
yeah.
we discuss filling the hole, and we make a motion, and we vote on it tonight. And if it doesn't pass, it be as moot.
Now, a motion to fill the hole would be a recommendation to the select board. It would
Right.
not be at
It's not
this-
an
yeah,
actual, we're
no,
filling the
no,
hole. It's a,
yes.
this is a thing we want to go ask for.
Right. And such a request of the select board, or, such a piece of advice for the select board would not come next Monday.
No.
We submitted our packet already, and,
Right, this is just future.
Yeah,
There's
it's
nothing
for
about
future.
the hole in
Yeah.
the package.
No.
Is that right?
yeah. And Keith's proposal is that when his back is better.
Yeah. So,
So it'd be, potentially several months before he could donate his time and his labor.
And materials are free.
Well,
not necessarily.
now, that brings up a good point. I don't know anything about what needs to go in that foundation. I don't know what type of fill, and I don't know what type of drainage. So I don't know. Someone else here might know, but I don't know
It-
what goes in there.
It depends on a soil assay, and
Yeah.
we don't want to fill it with soil. We don't probably want to fill it with sand. There are 29 kinds of gravel, sizes and with and without fines. So whatever it's filled with should be appropriate.
Right.
Maybe based on what's already there, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Um,
I mean, I've done this kind of work, so, yeah.
Would it be good to wait until Keith comes back and explain how and what he'd put in there? There's that foundation that's in, does that get covered, or does that get covered up to the foundation?
I think that
Yeah.
this is beyond anyone on this committee.
Yeah,
It is.
to,
except Keith.
Not even me.
Beyond.
Yes, this is beyond anyone on this committee.
Yeah, including
Uh,
Keith.
Oh, except Keith. I don't
No,
think
it's
actually
beyond
Keith
Keith.
has any expertise here
No.
either.
Well,
He's a great
Yeah,
landscaper.
yeah, he's a very good landscaper. But I don't think it's in his portfolio to recommend which fill and for that site. And if we pull foundation stones out, does that make a difference? Probably not, but I don't know.
Well, yeah, there could,
Jenga.
Yeah.
yeah, it could be, the sidewalk is already compromised by
Yes,
hole.
yeah.
well, he would have probably references he could check with people, even in
He
the
did.
public works.
He already told us, yeah. So he presented this previously, and he said that there was material at the transfer station that DPW owned that he wanted to use. So he has told us specifically what fill he wanted to use. He wanted to use free material sitting at the transfer station. And so, to summarize, Jen has spoken also at this committee multiple times, saying that that is not an appropriate fill because there has not been a soil assay, there has not been a design and construction documents to say what needs to go under there. There's the Jenga problem. There's so many problems with choosing the fill now just to make the hole be filled,
Right.
and either causing further problems or having to undo it are both extreme likelihoods if we fill this hole with the material from the transfer station. So I don't think any of us are not aware of the background of this conversation. And I'm sorry to my very lovely good friend Keith, but I would like to make a motion to say that as a committee, we do not recommend filling the hole before design and construction documents.
So, is that a motion?
That's my motion.
I'll
Ah.
second it.
Okay.
And we can have complete more discussion, but I just want to put
Yeah,
that motion
yeah.
on the table to
Yes,
kind of
yes.
guide the discussion.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I would, just as a discussion,
Yeah.
I'll second the motion.
So it's been seconded,
So-
and now we
okay,
can
so you-
discuss. Yeah,
Point of
absolutely.
order, did you get the person who put down the motion and the second? Because that's important. Okay, that's
Yeah.
important for the minutes.
Yep.
Now, let's discuss, it's time to discuss.
No.
Jan.
Please.
No, I lost one.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Appropriate,
Oh, yes, because I just thinking back to our committee's charge. Our committee's charge isn't to fill the hole. So I do sort of feel like it's a little bit of an aside. Like, if someone came to, I would have no issue if someone went to the select board and said, hey, I want to fill the hole. But I don't think it's our committee. It's charge. So.
Interesting point, yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Well, what's Keith saying is like, people are going to be waiting forever to get to this park. And I think he was kind of saying, well, let's fill the hole, move the fence, so people could actually be using it if it's going to take 2-3 years to do that. And I understand there's no point filling the hole if we're just going to have to unfill it and fill it again. That's kind of a waste of time before we have more information. But is it perhaps just education that we need to do with the park? Like, I mean, I had no idea this takes so flipping long to do. So is it back to the point of like, do we put some signage up to
we
say?
talked about that
And we
the last
did.
meeting.
And so
Yeah.
that is in our charge, and I think that might be a way to say, this is where we're at. I do agree with the motion, but could we do something different that is within our
Our charge,
charge?
yes.
And I'd like to give a nod to Keith. I mean, he came in early, passionate about, let's open that up. And he slowly, acquiesced to the flippin' process. But I still want to give Keith a nod for his
Absolutely.
volunteering, the labor, and pushing it. It's not an apology if we vote no. It's just important to convey that to Keith, because
Yes.
he's not here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So something that's on my mind is I think I ultimately agree with the motion. I also agree with the notion that to fill the hole is not necessarily in the direct charge of the committee. And what I'm wondering is if some of the big questions about being able to fill a hole to open a park temporarily in order to, I think, fulfill what I feel like is a very fair and reasonable value set that Keith has described to this committee. Public land should be open for public use. When we do, is there a way to there's a series of ifs here, but if we get approval for the design and engineering and a resurvey to get done, is there a way to provide some more information so that, hey, if Keith or someone else wants to go fill in the hole and they can do that in a matter of months and it's going to take us years to build, at least the effort of that it is in the charge of our committee has provided some information so that somebody else can go advance that charge.
Well,
I want to
I think-
consider that.
I think when Jen said it's not in our charge, she meant like not separately and prematurely. But could it be a phase 2A? 100%, and that could be in our charge. If phase 1 is design and engineering and we know what goes in the hole, then boom, now we can talk about phase 2A, fill the hole. Because we've been told by our engineer what to put in the thing. So then it becomes back to our process. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I have an agenda item for next time, and that is, what can we do with the park in this interim period? And I think a brainstorming session at a future meeting might be, signage is great. We could have a snow sculpture contest in the winter. We could invite kids to put sculpture in. These are not well-thought-out ideas, but they're examples of
Those
things.
could all tie into fundraising too.
Right.
I love
Right.
that.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
so if we have what could we do? Could we have
I think,
a concert?
yeah.
Could we have a string ensemble or a brass ensemble play there and have
I
it
think as
do?
long as the conversation going forward is everything is with the ultimate goal of fundraising,
Yep.
that's fantastic. And we need to get going on fundraising, and then these can be pieces that support the fundraising, 100%.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Jen, the design that we've are pushing has a boardwalk or has boards in part of, do they go over where the hole is now?
No.
No? Okay.
No, they're down by the river. In fact, they're right up against the embankment owned by New Hampshire Fish and Game, the old fish ladder.
Well, but there's, if I remember right, there's
I'm pulling
some
it up for you, though.
places it's closer to the thing where you have tables and chairs, right?
That
Tables
was
and
the-
chairs, yes, but no deck.
Sitting on what?
Yeah,
No,
that's all solid ground, so
That's
that's.
on ground,
yeah,
okay,
Yeah,
okay,
stone dust pavement.
that's right. Got it,
And then there's the slope, so the whole will be under
yeah.
a variety of conditions that,
Mhm.
you know, need to get mapped out by the designers. So
Are we ready to vote?
we're not ready for that.
Mhm.
Let's vote. Call the question.
Before we vote, part of Keith's concern, or at least stated concern, was the foundation for the business to the, I think it's, I'll just call it west, the chocolatier.
Yeah.
So that foundation is cracking. I am no expert on buildings, on the engineering of buildings, on foundations. I really just know about my own house and barely there. So I am not an expert. But Keith's concern is that the foundation being a whole is leading to the crumbling of that foundation. And that is the stated concern of the owners of the chocolatier as well. So we will report up our findings as a committee, which we interviewed a lot of people, including the owners of the chocolatier, and they were concerned about it. The town knows about this. I communicated this to staff. I don't think we need a formal vote on that. You know, they're notified. You're notified. So I think we have done our business. I'm not sure that we need to say anything to the select board. I don't believe we do. So,
Unless they bring it up.
Yeah,
Yes,
if they
unless
bring
it-
it up,
yeah.
then you,
Yeah, and there's nothing precluding the chocolatier from approaching the town and asking for access to their easement. So that's beyond our, we have no
right.
authority
Yeah,
in this.
The relative contribution to the failure of their foundation from other causes.
Precludes the town by 30
Yeah.
years.
So maybe there's a water drainage issue there,
Yeah.
perhaps? I don't know.
It doesn't
Maybe not.
change that we don't know what to put in the hole.
Yes.
Even if we wanted to, we don't know what to put in it.
So
So,
I don't want to encumber this discussion, but I do have a question that I'd like Doug to field after we vote,
Okay, so.
please.
Have we concluded discussion? Yes. So, the motion, if you could read it, please?
I didn't write it down, it was too
Okay.
quick.
All right.
I'm going to look at the video afterwards and then I'll be able to
Okay.
write it down.
Yeah.
Amanda, can you repeat the motion?
um, I move that we do not fill the hole until we have design and engineering and survey completed and we know what to do.
And I
that's-
second
so-
it.
So, is that a recommendation that we give to the select board?
No, that's a for our committee here, so we stop talking about it and we start working on fundraising. I mean, to be honest, that's literally what it is.
Yeah.
Do we want to put that many restrictions on it? Because by the time we get design and all that stuff, maybe a year away.
but we won't know what to put in it until the engineer tells us. So when they give us their report, so how would you amend it?
I don't know.
Until an engineer tells us what to put in
Well,
it?
and I guess,
That's fine.
Postpone filling it until we know.
yeah.
Okay. I move that we not fill the hole until an engineer tells us what to put in it. A paid
And I second it as amended.
town.
That's good.
Well, I'm this is the same emotion, we're just clarifying the language for post-discussion.
She can amend the motion.
Second it?
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Just don't have to
So now we can re-second it.
Yes, okay.
I did second her
Okay.
amendment.
So,
Okay.
Yeah, that's what discussion's for.
All right.
good process.
Yeah.
And, yeah. We're there.
Natural.
We're there. So I'm going to hold up discussion, just like, we're not filling the hole anyway. We would not recommend to the select board anything regarding the hole until the select board receives intelligence from whatever source, but most likely an engineer, and possibly someone on town staff or some people on town staff. That would be my recommendation for this motion. So we
So hold
have-
on, Steve, are you suggesting
like
we
we're just-
amend the
we're just
language?
splitting
Like we just
words a lot
wordsmith
at
it
this
here?
point.
You're
It's
saying
just
the
for
same
in here,
thing.
we're not taking this
Okay.
anywhere.
If folks feel you're saying the
Yeah.
same thing, and that's the intention
Yeah,
of the
is
committee,
every,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
So our
Mincing.
motion is, do not fill the hole until an engineer tells us what to put in it.
Great. I'm fine with that.
Simple.
Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. Okay. Next steps.
Can I ask
Fundraising.
my question of
Yes, you
Doug?
can. Yes, Doug.
So,
Oh, we're never gonna have a park.
I know. I'll be-
We're closing on time.
First of all, what's the easement that the chocolatier people have? How many feet?
They have 39 inches, depends on where we are.
Doug, are you going to disappear?
Yes, why, do you have something?
If,
Actually, I was just gonna go.
okay, if a property owner has a crumbling foundation and the property owner's neighbor has a big hole near it, this is theoretical.
Depends on what caused the hole.
Pardon?
It depends on what caused the,
Okay.
You can speak into
Okay, I'm not asking for a legal or quasi-legal.
depends, oh, I'm sorry.
I just don't want this problem to come home to roost, if it is a problem.
Well, they would need to approach the town themselves,
Yeah.
not
Okay.
us approach the town on their behalf.
Yeah.
They need to
Right,
come
no, I'm not,
talk to the town.
no, I'm
Yeah.
just talking about
So if they haven't done
being
that,
prepared.
It's the situation, there was only half of the foundation that was filled. The other half was not. Typically, that if the abutting property made a complaint or that their foundation was at risk because of the hole, then it should be filled in.
Okay. And what is their easement, and do they hold title only to their foundation, or do they hold title to the whole easement?
I don't know
Okay.
about the easement.
Thanks.
But, you know, once again, you don't know about what it was backfilled with, what's there now. My take on it is investigation of that as well. You don't know what's underneath that grass.
And to be, honest, when the select board accepted the donation, one of the first requests was to fill in the hole. And that was one of the reasons we created the committee was, we had reservations about just filling it in because we don't know what's underneath. And that's not to say that it wouldn't be reconsidered again if you made that recommendation, but keep in mind that that was one of the first things that was asked of us, was to fill in the hole. And we didn't have the inclination to do it at that time.
I just don't want the hole to drag us down. That's my point.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would suggest that, some sort of testing, not for contaminants or anything like that, just, we need to know what is underneath the existing fill that was put in there.
Right.
And I'm like, why did they only fill half of the lot and not the other half? It just kind of like,
Right.
I was around when it burned, so.
I mean, I respect this line of questioning. I'm both sympathetic to the Chocolatier folks and really interested in the extent to which this is a town problem, and if the town needs to solve it, then the town will pay for it, not our committee. But I also feel like some of this is beyond our control, maybe right
Totally
now.
beyond us.
Beyond our control and our charge.
And out of our charge.
We'll take
Okay,
care of
good.
it.
Happy to stay off the list.
We'll
Put that
do-
one to rest.
The town will do the right thing, I'm sure.
Yes, thanks, Doug.
Yeah.
So our next steps are to go to the select board, make our presentation, and make ask our questions the 4 questions that we spoke about earlier, and come back next month and talk about, in general terms, next steps at that time and fundraising.
So can we have homework for next time?
Good idea.
What would you prefer? What would you recommend, Amanda?
Brainstorms on both of those. Everybody come with a typed or handwritten list or actually, can we get a typed or handwritten list sent ahead of time?
Yes, so I can
Please.
distribute them.
If you need to drop a handwritten list off, that's fine. I can pick it up here. Otherwise, email it to Steve and he'll email it, and I
Yep.
will coalesce all of that into some initial content for us to start to look at.
And
So the 2 topics are?
the other one is,
The topic is fundraising,
Yep.
and you can do a subtopic of communication within fundraising.
yes.
That's fine.
and ideas for what we could do in the park.
Yep, that can be a
In the
subtopic of
interim.
fundraising. Absolutely, 100%.
So you all have your homework.
So what date do we want that by?
So that, it'd be good to have it by that Monday, so I believe that's the 14th.
Beautiful.
And you'll field those, Steve?
Yes.
Yeah,
you
give
can
them to
see- you can
Steve,
see
and
it,
then
yeah.
Steve can
Thank you.
Yep,
pass
and I
them
will
back
send out
out.
a reminder, so that, I'll give you a week's advance notice. Yeah.
Fantastic.
So, well, yeah,
that's
plenty
a
of time.
We meet the week of the 14th? Yeah.
Correct.
No, it's due on the 14th.
I'm going to away for the next 2 weeks.
The
So-
17th of
So
July.
17th of July, we meet
We're going to
next.
come back on the 14th,
Okay.
my family.
Okay.
You can email it.
Well, I'm not going to be thinking about
Well, you
that.
can do it, you
That's
can,
just it.
Think about it,
you can do
yeah.
it this week. You can do it anytime.
In our thoughts
Tonight.
always,
Okay,
Bill.
Tonight, right.
Tonight.
We'll see. I
With
got
that, our meeting is adjourned.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.